We're recording the interview of Tammie Ellerbe. This interview is being conducted by Erica Carter from the Wright State University Veterans Voices Project. This interview is being recorded at Wright State University in the New Media Incubator. It is 8:59 a.m. on September 25th, 2018. Hi.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Where and when were you born?
I was born in Stamford, Connecticut, March 5th, 1978.
Okay. Who were your parents and what were their occupations?
So my parents are Janetta Lassiter and Charles Dunbar, both factory workers.
Where?
My mom is currently in South Carolina, but my dad is deceased.
Okay. What kind of factories?
Meat production factories.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Do you have any siblings?
I do. Her name is Tanya Elmore, and she's actually also right now serving in the Air Force.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. What were you doing before you entered the service?
So I entered Wright after high school.
Were you in any clubs or groups or?
Just the honor society, in the band for a little bit, not that good, and just mostly academic clubs.
Okay. What branch of the military did you serve?
I served in the Air Force.
Why the Air Force?
The Air Force because, and it's funny, initially I did enlist in the Army. I was talking to one of my cousins and she told me that the Air Force was better for females. So I ended up getting out of my Army commitment and came to the Air Force, and I'm so grateful that she told me about the Air Force.
Why? What stigma came with the Army?
Yeah, with the Army, I wouldn't have made it in the Army. Just the hard PT, it just wouldn't have been a great fit for me. So I'm glad that I decided to come in the Air Force.
Okay, tell me about the Air Force PT, please.
So with the Air Force PT, and not to say that it's not tough, but definitely, so with us, you get to do PT pretty much on your own. You know, our test is the mile and a half run, sit-ups and push-ups based on, you know, your gender and your age. The only thing I know about the Army is when I was stationed at Pope, Fort Bragg is literally right there, and I would see the females, you know, carrying the rucksacks or whatever, and I just know that would not have been a good fit for me.
The Air Force doesn't have to carry rucksacks?
No, ma'am. No, not for PT. No.
Well, okay then. That sounds like a nice branch. Were you enlisted or were you commissioned?
So both. I started off as an airman, did that for 7.5 years, and then I got my commission. I did ROTC for 1 year in high school, and I promised my ROTC instructors that I would, you know, get my commission before I left. So.
What happened in basic training? Anybody you remember specifically?
Oh yeah, so basic training, as scary as it was, and I remember when it was time for me to leave for basic training, you know, I was crying and my mom just told me, you know, you signed up for it, so get on the bus. Basic training, there were two other girls from South Carolina as well. We actually ended up in the same flight, and to this day, we're still friends. They were at my retirement ceremony. We just, this past Sunday, had a 3-way. We go on trips throughout the year, and they really made basic training, you know, just memorable, and we were, you know, able to push through it. So.
Any specific memories?
One memory, well, there's a few memories from basic training. So there's one duty, it's called KP duty, and it's where you have to work in the kitchen. And so there would be times where we would be singing while we were washing dishes. We get in trouble because you're not supposed to be singing back there, having too much fun. When it was time to do our runs in basic training, me and my one friend, we were always the last person to finish. And by the time it was time for us to turn around, we hadn't even got to the end. So yeah, just really some great times. And even though it was tough, there was some, you know, still some fun memories about it.
Any drill instructors that you remember specifically?
Oh yeah, of course, my TI. I want to say he was Senior Airman Coughlin, and it's funny because he's now an officer. He was enlisted at the time, and I actually ran into him at one of my bases later on in my career, and I was so nervous to go speak to him because all I could just remember was how he was in basic training, but he was actually pretty cool when I, you know, went and talked to him. So that was good to even see how he had progressed, you know, through the ranks. So.
Okay. So good time in basic. which is wow.
Yeah.
we don't necessarily hear that a lot, so congratulations. Where did you go next? You have job training, right?
Right. So after basic training, I was at Shepherd. So I stayed in Texas. I was at Shepherd Air Force Base. I was in finance, so I was there for I think like 6 to 8 weeks for training.
How long was basic?
So basic back then was 6 weeks, even though it felt longer, but it was only 6 weeks back then. Mm-hmm.
Do you guys train with weapons as Air Force?
I don't remember us training with weapons back then. Anytime I handled a weapon, it was actually once I was on active duty or, getting ready for a deployment, but not a whole lot.
Anything special happened in finance school?
Finance school, let me see. Oh, and I take that back. We did do weapons. There was probably when they actually took us out to the range, and there was 1 week so we did get some exposure, not a whole lot, we did. In finance school, let me see, anything that stuck out. I just remember there being a lot of numbers and, just trying to make sure I stayed on task with that. Nothing real crazy that happened, not compared to basic training anyway. Finance was kind of like a little breather, getting used to, okay, what Air Force life was going to be like. So nothing that really stood out in tech school.
And how was that transition for you from civilian high school to I'm a grown-up now?
I know. I mean, it was tough because it's like now, you're in the real world. You're an adult now. You don't have that safety net that you had when you were in high school, or, the responsibilities that you didn't have that you thought you wanted, but now you really do have them. So you have to deal with that. So it was quite a transition. But I think the Air Force does a good job of giving you that structure and discipline you need so you can, make that transition and, be a successful adult. So.
What were the barracks like? Did you guys have barracks?
Oh, yes, we did. So in basic training, we're all in a bay. It's like, oh my goodness, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 girls that are in a bay. So that was quite different from anything I had experienced. And then when I got to my first base, the rooms were actually really nice. So there was 2 of us in the room compared to the Army where there was 4. So yeah, the room setup was really nice and at my first base.
Okay, and where was that?
So that was in Pope Air Force Base in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Okay, how long were you there?
So I was there for 9 years.
Wow.
9 years, yes.
So you got commissioned there?
I got commissioned there, yes.
Okay, so let's go back a little bit and just kind of walk through what happened your first arrival day. Like you were out of training. Did you take leave in between?
Just a few days, but it's funny. I do remember my very first day. So when I arrived to Pope, my mom and my stepdad are with me. And my first supervisor, Levanston Brown, he's there and he's quite a character. And I forgot my my washing powder for my clothes, and so my mom is like, Tammie, you don't forget your washing powder. So to this day, I still stay in contact with my first supervisor. He still teases me about that day. So, but at my first duty assignment, those guys like Sergeant Levanston Brown and Dwight Wallace, who's a lieutenant colonel now, and he's just retired. They made me fell in love with the Air Force. It's because of them that I, did as well as I did and, ended up liking it. I mean, they pretty much took me under their wings, made sure I learned the job, or, if there was anything I needed, they were there. I remember Dwight taking me over to the education center to make sure, I was squared away with that because he knew school was one of the things that I was really interested in. And just everybody just was like family. So it just, I just fell in love with the Air Force, and they always took good care of me.
Okay. You did your college while you were in?
I did. So when I came in the Air Force, I didn't have any college any college credit. So I was going to school at night. And then after having, I want to say about 80 credit hours, I decided to apply for a commissioning program, which I still attended school at Fayetteville State, so I didn't have to worry about my classes transferring. Got accepted into the program in 2004, and then I finished the program in 2005 and received my commission.
Okay, what rank were you when you signed up to be commissioned?
I was a staff sergeant.
That's a
E5.
A5, okay. Can you walk me through an average day of I want you to give me 2 things,
okay.
Of a below enlisted and then as a NCO? Or were you a NCO as an E5?
Yeah, I was an NCO.
Okay, so how was it when you first got there? What was an average day like? So you're up at 6, there's no PT, or is there?
I don't remember any PT. I think I could, at that time, you could go on your own if you wanted, as long as you were making, excellent or satisfactory on your PT test, and, you were pretty much on for your PT. So as an airman, my day consisted of, I think I had to be to work at 8 o'clock, getting into work. First of all, finance is crazy because, it's customer service based. Anytime you're dealing with customers, you never know what you're going to get yourself into. Nobody ever came in to say, hey, thank you guys, I got paid on the 1st and the 15th. It was never that. It was always, generally it was a complaint about something, or we would have a spouse call because she looked at her husband's pay and the pay wasn't right. Or, there would just be a number of things going on. But I just remember as an airman, a lot of times customers would come in, and because of your rank, they wouldn't believe what the guidance that you were giving them. But at least my supervisor at the time, they would always have our back because they had trained us. So they knew that we knew our stuff, and they always had our back. So that was the one thing that I didn't like as an airman, is just because of my rank, you didn't believe what I was telling you, when most time it was the airmen. They're the technicians. They're the ones that's doing the work, so they know exactly what they're doing. And then as an NCO, you're responsible for, now you have to take care of the people. As an airman, you have to worry about yourself. But now as an NCO, you have that responsibility of being a supervisor and, make sure that person is taken care of. And you're being held accountable, not just for yourself, but for someone else. So that was to me, I felt like my work stayed the same. It's just that I had someone else that I was responsible for as an NCO. So
did you enjoy that?
I did. I mean, I love being around people, taking care of people, making those type of relationships. So yeah, I loved it. Mm-hmm.
What are there, it's hard to believe that a Air Force personnel would walk in and be irate, but when it comes to people's money,
yes,
you want your money. Are there any specific stories or people that you remember?
Not that I would say names, I just can remember, I would say a lot of times the pilots were disgruntled. And they flew a lot, so I get it. And there's different pays that they receive. So I would say a lot of times they would come in, like, I'm a pilot and you guys better get this right, or whatever the case may be. A lot of wives calling about different things with their husband's pay. I remember that sticking out. And then anywhere, once somebody knows that you're in finance, anywhere you go on base, you could be in the dining facility trying to have lunch. Hey, can you tell me about this pay, or what's going on? Or can you they wanted to stop and just talk about their pay, because sometimes it's easier to catch you outside of work than actually coming into the office or whatever. So, and then as an airman, because I did do a good job, I did get to go on this TDY to Africa, which I'll never forget. And I remember they gave me $15,000 in cash when I had never seen that amount of money in my entire life at that point.
Why? You got to back up.
Because at that time we weren't using the credit card that much, and whatever mission these guys were going on, they needed to pay for fuel. So there wasn't a card that we were using at the time. So I was the paying agent. That was my responsibility, to make sure wherever they needed fuel, then I would, have the money for them to pay. So that was, and I remember being in my hotel room, and I just put all the money on the bed and just kind of was playing with it or whatever. But I came back and all the money was accounted for, and, did a good job. So
how long were you there? When did you go?
So, oh my goodness, when did I go? Maybe let me see, because I got there in 97. So maybe anywhere from 98 or 99. And I might have been gone for 5 days or something like that. It wasn't that long.
Was this you did it and then they sent another person?
Oh no, it was just the trip. The whole trip itself was 5 days. So it was just me that whole day with those whole entire 5 days with the crew.
How big was the crew?
It was maybe about 5 of us. It wasn't that many people.
And you got to tell me more. I'm dying to know.
We went to several places. So we went to Africa. I remember us going to Africa. We went to Spain. We went to Rota, Spain, and maybe we went to Italy. But they were turn and goes. I mean, it was just so quick. We might be there for the night. We'd have dinner, and then the next day we were somewhere else.
Okay, so you guys start in a plane, everybody in the crew, and that is the aircraft that you're using to go all these
Right.
places. So it's kind of like private jet flying.
So, well, yeah, something like that. But yeah, just government aircraft. Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember which aircraft it was?
No,
No.
it's too long ago.
Okay, that is about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So we'll let that slide.
I was just trying to keep up with the money.
And did you have to, was it only fuel that the money paid for? Or
Yeah,
were
it
you
was only fuel.
Okay. Okay. Did you guys receive TDY pay or?
Oh yeah, we did.
Okay, and
because it was considered a TDY.
all right, that sounds so exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, and you were enlisted at this point.
I was enlisted at that time.
Okay, so you're like an E4 running around,
Yeah, I was.
big boss pants.
Yes, I was. Yeah, with that amount of money, and I just at the time I couldn't believe they even trusted me with that much money. But no, I ended up, like I said, every dime was accounted for, and we ended up doing a good job. So.
Okay, so there any more fun, fantastic
no
facts?
more stories like that. Yeah.
No. Okay. So that was enlisted as an NCO. Did your day change?
I mean, of course, I had more responsibility, but it was, and I ended up doing. So as an airman, I did customer service pretty much, and then as an NCO, I was an accounting liaison where I was responsible for paying the impact card. So all the government purchases that different units would use their card to pay for, like supplies or whatever they needed for their organization to run smoothly. I was in charge of making sure that got paid, and that bill could run from about like $1 million a month. It was just, just crazy seeing how much money that we, spend on a monthly basis to make sure we're running efficient. So that job, I really enjoyed that job as well.
Were there any major changes in the finance world while you were there? Like any new regulations or?
I mean, there were constant changes. I can't think of nothing really big stands out. I noticed a lot of changes once I left the finance career field, but while I was there, and of course, again, I'm still in training mode. I don't remember. There's nothing that really stood out to me about nothing big, because in the Air Force, flexibility is the key to air power, so you adjust. So I can't think of anything that stood out.
Did you have to go to NCO training school?
I did. So for us, it's called Airman Leadership School. And it was actually on the base, and I want to say it was maybe about 4 weeks. So you're there with your peers, and you're learning how to be a supervisor, how to write reports, and all those different things. So and it definitely helps you. That way, you're prepared before you walk into that role. So.
Okay. So what happens going commissioned? How did that? Tell me about that journey.
So getting my commission, so first of all, I was the oldest person in ROTC. It was me and one other girl from Pope. She did, Carolyn Rocco was her name. She did it. So it was definitely a learning experience, because when you go to ROTC, especially coming from, you've already been on active duty. And so now you're kind of switching gears and you're a student. So at ROTC, it is a training environment where you're reporting into class, and they're having you do all these things. And being the oldest, it was funny because I remember one day we had to run. So in ROTC, you do PT, and we do it as a group. And I want to say it was like 3 times a week. And there was one day my roommate baked this cake. I decided to eat the cake knowing I had to run the next day. And lo and behold, I black out. Yeah. So all I know when I wake up, I see all these faces looking at me or whatever. So needless to say, I never ate cake again before a run. But, and they would tease me about it, but it was a good tease. They were a good group of people. But, and the good thing with ROTC, so the younger students, they taught me how to get through ROTC life, and then I taught them, okay, this is what to expect on the Air Force. So there was a good exchange there, and that kind of helped us build our relationship. But I was in college for 1.5 years. That was, I definitely enjoyed that time in my life, because whereas when I was in the Air Force, I was focusing on my job and going to school. But in ROTC, I really all I had to focus on was school. So it was nice to kind of have that little break. And, I enjoyed it, and I'm glad I got to finish it up at Fayetteville State, and just the instructors there and just the relationships I built. So it was a really good time.
Are you still in contact with anybody from ROTC?
Yeah, actually, her name is Sally. So she's actually stationed here at Wright, Pat. She's currently deployed now, but yeah, there's a few of them. Of course, a lot of us are Facebook friends, or we've seen each other throughout the year at different trainings or whatever like that. So yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. That sounds just so fun and
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. You finish ROTC
Mhm.
after a year and a half.
Hmm.
Where do you go next? What happens next?
So after ROTC, I ended up going to Davis-Monthan in Arizona. And that was my first assignment as an officer. Davis-Monthan.
Martha. Okay.
Mhm.
I haven't heard of that. Is it still open?
It is. It's in Tucson, Arizona.
Okay.
Hmm.
And what's your new average day like?
So my very first job as a commissioned officer, I was it's called an adjunct. I don't think they have them anymore, but I was saying executive officer, and it's in a pilot squadron, which is really new to me because I had never worked that close with pilots before. But I enjoyed it because they just getting to see what they, you already know what they bring to the mission, but actually seeing it day to day and just what that environment was. It was really a good experience. I had a great boss. Being a second lieutenant, whether you're prior enlisted or not, everyone, that's your time to make any mistakes and get used to being in that rank. But everybody, took care of me and just, and then after I left that job, I went over to the NPFs, which is personnel. The lieutenants there, like all of us, worked together to get our masters. We would sign each other up for classes. And just getting to work with the airmen and the NCO, like a lot of them, we're Facebook friends, and we stay in contact. Just the camaraderie there, it was just awesome. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Just awesome.
And that's after you left Arizona?
So that's all of this is happening while I'm in Arizona.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
So you got your master's in Arizona.
I got my master's in Arizona.
How long did that take?
About 2 years. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so.
And that's me dragging my feet a little bit, but yeah, that took me about 2 years. Mm-hmm.
And the Air Force is still paying for this?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
So that's delightful. And you're going to school after your regular work day?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And what time was your regular work day?
So I would say it was maybe like 7:30 to 4:35, just depending on what we had going on. Mm-hmm.
The pilots, they were all officers?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Did anybody ever pull rank on you because?
Oh no, they were so sweet. No, not at all.
So
Not
it was a
at all.
different experience than being financed.
Yeah. Oh, totally different experience. I would take that one any day. They were so sweet and always joking around or whatever. I enjoyed it. Yeah, totally different from what I experienced from finance.
Okay. How many years have you been in at this point?
While I'm at Arizona.
Yeah, so you get your master's and you've been in for, it
So
sounds
at
like
that-
10 years?
So yeah, about 10 years around that point. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then what happened?
So at that point, well, during my time at Arizona, I also had my first son.
Okay.
So that was challenging because, for one, it's hot in Arizona, and he was born in May. So yeah, I was super excited when he finally got there. So that was challenging, just learning how to be a mom and still, take care of the job and be a wife, all those types of things. So, it was my very first child. So just figuring all that out and still going to school. And that's why it took me a little longer with school, just being a mom as well. But it all came together.
Was your husband enlisted at the time? Or, I'm sorry, in the military?
Yeah. So my husband and my husband actually met at Pope. So, yeah, he was enlisted at the time. And then while we were in Arizona, he actually separated. And then he started going to school so he could get his commission.
But he got out of the
He
military?
got out. So he got out of the military.
Did his degree.
Yep.
And came back as an officer.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So dual military
Mm-hmm.
home, both officers
Mm-hmm.
rocking it.
Yeah.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
First son, congratulations.
Yeah.
What happens next?
So after Arizona, so after he gets his commission, then we go to, he goes off to school. He's an intel officer. He goes off to intel school. And then we both moved to Louisiana, both officers is what's next for us. So then while we're in Louisiana, I'm a protocol officer while we're in Louisiana. So, and I absolutely love it. I love putting events together anyway, so it was a perfect fit for me. You get to work with different DVs and just kind of see how distinguished visitors.
Okay.
And kind of see how things work behind the scenes. And you're working with a team of people, so I love working with people, so that's a great fit for us. He's getting adjusted to, and then we're getting adjusted to both of us being officers and we actually have our second child at Barksdale. And when our second child was born, my husband was actually deployed. So that was a little challenging. Both of our moms came out to help me while he was gone. His mother was with me when I delivered in the hospital, and so he was actually in a meeting while he was deployed when our son was born. So when he found out I had my son, he was telling everybody over there, and they were just, congratulating him or whatever. And then he came back home, and then I want to say maybe a year later, then I deployed. So I had my very first deployment while I was stationed in Barksdale.
Okay, what rank were you?
So at that point, I was a captain.
Okay, and what rank was he?
And he should have also been a captain, if not a first lieutenant.
Okay. Where did you were deployed? So you're away from the babies, away from the husband. Are you still with your same unit, or were you?
No, a different unit.
Okay, so you got orders to be attached.
Just me.
You gotta go.
Yep.
All right, and are you still a protocol officer over there?
I am.
Okay.
I am.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
Where did you go?
So I went to Qatar. And it was for a year. So for this to be, and at this point I had 15 years in, had never deployed other than the TDY for 5 days that I told you about. But at this point, I want to say my youngest son is maybe a year and a half old. Then my oldest son, I'll say he may have been 5, around 5. And it was tough because I did not want to leave just leave my kids or leave my husband. So it was a very tough deployment. At first, it took me a while. There was some guilt because I was leaving them behind. So it took me a while to actually enjoy my deployment. So after a few months, I got in a routine, started to love what I was doing. I had a great boss, great office, and then just started to make the most of it. And then it felt like the time started to go fast after that point. And then I got in a routine where I would call my oldest son every day. We would read a book together, and I would stay in touch with his teachers to make me feel a part of his life as much as I could. And but yeah, after then the time just started going by fast. And it was, even though it was tough for me to do that, I'm glad that I had that experience, because it also allowed me to just have some time to myself where it was just me that I had to, focus on for a little while. Okay,
so you got to tell me about what your day was like, where you lived when you were in Qatar.
So in Qatar, it's always hot. I'll tell you that, easily over 100 degrees. So where I stayed, there was 2 of us in the room, but we only shared the common area, so the kitchen and the bathroom. She had her quarters, I had my quarters. So my typical day would be like getting up, I would say maybe around 7:30, grabbing something from the dining facility, then going into work. I had my own vehicle over there because I was the chief of protocol, so that was kind of nice, and not having to rely on the bus and different things. My day just kind of depended on, if we had a visitor coming, so just making sure that the itinerary was set, everything was good to go there. We also controlled the lodging quarters for visitors coming in, so just making sure, all of that was squared away, and keeping track of anybody that was coming in like over the next 30 days and making sure there was, they were squared away. Sometimes we would have to go downtown because we were going to pick up a visitor or bring someone back to the base. And so generally about between 7 to 8 hours. It wasn't hard work that we were doing over there. And then let me see what else we did. And then making those relationships around the base, because when you have an event, it's not just protocol that puts it on. You are relying on other units, or you need other support to get it done. So just making those connections with them. But I enjoyed it, especially being able to go downtown and getting to see, the different culture and, how everything works there. So no, I enjoyed it. I always tell people, if you ever have to deploy, Qatar is where you want to go. And actually my husband is in Qatar right now.
Okay. What's the name of the base?
So Al Udeid Air Base.
Okay. Can you tell us about some of these visitors?
So who did we had the Secretary of Defense, Leon Panetta, back then. Let me see. He was probably the highest DV that I got to see while I was there. A lot of times it would just be different generals from different MAJCOMs that we would host. Trying to see. Yeah, he's the Secretary of Defense is probably the highest person that I got to see while I was out there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Was he nice?
He was, yeah, he was. And of course, when he comes, he has this entourage, and so you're mostly working with them to make sure his needs are taken care of. But yeah, for the most part, everybody's really nice. And then,
I just, where did he get to stay?
I'm trying to see. It wasn't in our quarter, so that didn't happen. So yeah, I'm not sure where he stayed, but it wasn't in the quarters that I was over.
Did you have enlisted people with you, working for you?
Mm-hmm,
okay.
I did.
All right, good.
Yeah.
Good.
So it was a team. In my office, it was about 5 of us. So 2 officers, then 3 enlisted.
Is that a job if I want to go in the Air Force? I want to be a protocol person. Is that still a job?
Yeah, that's still available.
Mm-hmm. That sounds so much fun.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So you finish up your year.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's great.
Mm-hmm.
Are you sad to go?
It is. It was tough. It was sweet and bitter at the same time, because of course you're ready to go home to see your family, but then you're also proud of the work that you've done here and just the bond that you make, because you've been with these people for a year. So it's not like you just, forget about them. So it was definitely bittersweet. And once I got home, my youngest son, who was 1.5 years at the time, when I got home, he looked at me and then he looked at the computer, because he was so used to seeing me on FaceTime. I guess for him, he's like, is this really her? So just, but then after that day, then he was fine. He realized, okay, this is really mommy. So, but yeah. And then for my son, my oldest son, I always worried that he would feel like mommy was gone for so long. But when I got back, he was like, mommy, it really wasn't that long. It didn't feel like it was long. So that was so good. That was a huge relief for me to hear him say that. So.
Okay. You come back to the same unit.
I come back to Louisiana. Mm-hmm.
Same job.
Mm-hmm.
Husband's still there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What happens next?
So next is time for us to move. So then we end up here at Wright, Ohio.
What do you do here?
So here, my first job here, I'm over at the Force Support Squadron, where I'm the deputy commander. And which is I know it was a huge job. So I was like, oh my God, I'm getting, it didn't really feel like a break, because here I am. I just left the deployment, and I was trying to, I was hoping that I'd be able to give my boys some of the time back from being gone that year. And then we, with PCSN, trying to get settled here, get them in schools and get them all taken care of. And then I get this job as the deputy commander. But then also my husband leaves like a few months later. Then he goes on a deployment. So luckily his mom came out with us and, was a huge help during that time. And over in the FSS, there's just so much going on, because, again, it's another customer service-based organization. So we're responsible for the daycares, the fitness centers on base, the clubs on base, the gyms. So you're touching all these customers on base. So again, just a lot going on. But everybody that I work for, the people is really what makes the job for you. So everybody, they were just so great at their job, willing to help to do, whatever they need to do to get the mission done. So as busy as it was also rewarding at the same time. So. Mm-hmm.
Okay. How big did your staff grow when you got this position?
So at this position, so I did have a secretary. Then we had maybe 2 admin people that also sat out there that kind of supported. So it was myself as a deputy, then there was a civilian deputy, then there was the actual director, operation officer. So the secretary and the 2 admin personnel supported all of us. And then under us in the organization, there were about 900 people. Mm-hmm. So it was huge. Mm-hmm.
Are your work hours still the same?
Oh no, they are not the same anymore. Not your traditional 7:30, 4:30. Because sometimes we would have events after the duty hour. So it just depends. But no, it was never the like, okay, I'm getting here 7:30, leave for. It was not like that and I did that job for 2 years.
How long was your husband deployed?
So he was deployed for 6 months.
And this was his first deployment?
My husband, He's been deployed at least 8 or 9 times.
What?
Yes. Because he started out as civil engineer, and then in Intel he's gone a few times.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I won't ask any more questions about that. Just let him do what he's doing. Thank him for his service.
Yes.
Okay. So 2 years in that position. At this point, are we at 15 years yet?
Oh yeah, we're well past 15 now. So at this point, after I leave this job, then I'm at 18. About 18.
How long were you at Louisiana?
So I was at Louisiana for 4 years.
Okay. Okay. And you come here, you've got this commanding position. Do you get some rank?
I do. In this position, I make major.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you.
2 years there, and then what? You're still living here. So
yeah, I'm still. So then I move over to headquarters, where over at headquarters, I am the chief of the military personnel branch, where we take care of awards and decks, making sure officers get promoted on time, performance reports, all those types of things. And again, another great job. My staff was amazing. There was at least about 8 of us. I couldn't have asked for a better office to be my final office. I mean, we just got along so well. There was never a dull moment. I always looked forward to actually coming into work because I was going to see them and just see what craziness we could get into that day, but at the same time still take care of the customer. So it was just an awesome job.
Okay. And now we're rounding out our career.
Yes.
Okay. Why did you leave?
So I left, which was a tough decision for me. I left because so we already knew my husband had his deployment for a year in April to Qatar. So in October, I get notified that I'm being tasked with a deployment. Also leaving in April, my deployment was to Afghanistan. So me and my husband decided that, we weren't, at this point, especially since I could retire, we were not going to leave the kids without both parents if we didn't have to. So I applied for retirement.
All right. Family matters. It's important. It comes first. Okay. What do you do after?
So now, me and my husband, we own Enhance You in Beaver Creek, and Enhance You is a sports facility that primarily helps youth with their speed and agility. We do offer some adult classes as well. We have personal training. We do Zumba from time to time, line dancing, just, everything just to make sure people are, getting fit and taking care of themselves.
Are you a part of any veterans organizations?
Not yet. I am going to some, there's one organization where they meet monthly. I've been able to attend one meeting, but that is something that I plan on getting into.
Okay. Okay. How did you adjust to civilian life?
It was a little tough at first. When I first, I had my ceremony in March, and then my husband left in April. So after he left, I wanted to go by and just see what my guys were doing at work. But I knew that at some point I had to cut the cord, because it's not like I can't just hang out there with them because they got work to do, and I didn't have any work to do. So at first it was a little tough, because especially when you're used to always being busy and not so taking a break just didn't feel right. And there's only so much TV you can watch, every day or whatever. So but then I just started to it helped once my kids got out of school, and we just started taking trips, which was great because I had never been able to have a summer off with them. So that kept me busy. And plus I was an underpaid Uber because they would always want me to do stuff with their friends. So then that kept me busy. And then once they got in school, I started volunteering at their school and just different things at the business, volunteering in the community. And that kind of helped me take my mind off of wanting to go see my guys. And then I would just, do lunch with my guys. That way I could still stay in contact with them. So slowly but surely, I just got into a routine, and now, I'm enjoying it.
Okay. How, you had your retirement ceremony this past March? Okay, so just like a week ago, right?
Yeah.
Feels like a week ago.
Yeah.
When did you guys decide to open your business?
February 10th is when we opened our business.
So before you got out?
Yeah, before I got out, because at that point we knew I was getting out. So yeah, we had the early part of this year was super busy for us.
Okay, how's the business doing?
It is doing really well, really well. Yeah, the community has really rallied around us. So.
Okay, do you think that your deployments affected or changed your life at all?
Most definitely. I think my deployment made me stronger as an individual. prior to going to my deployment, I just thought that I wasn't going to be able to do this. I thought, I was going to be by myself. How am I going to get through this? But once I got through this, I'm like, you know what, Tammie, you can do this. You got this. And it just, boosted my confidence. I think it re-blued me a little more too, because all I had to focus on was the Air Force. There was nothing else. So just really getting involved there and, making a difference. So yeah, my deployment, as much as I did not want to have to go, I'm glad that I had that experience.
What are some of the life lessons you learned from the military?
From the military, I've learned to make the best of where you are. In the military, we're constantly moving. And so it's on you to just make the best of, what's going on. You just have to bloom where you're planted. So that is something that'll always stick with me. And just having a positive attitude is, I think your outlook on life depends on how you look at it. If you look at it negatively, then it's not going to turn out well. So just having a positive outlook and taking advantage of your opportunities. The Air Force has afforded me and my husband and our family, the opportunity to travel, get our degrees, and just the relationships that we've built. When me and my husband travel anywhere, most times there's somebody that we know there and we're hanging out with them or whatever. So we just, we owe a lot to the Air Force. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there anything that you feel that we haven't discussed or that you would like to say?
Let me see. I was thinking about the Army. I forgot to mention that the reason I thought I'd be okay doing the Army is that me and one of my friends were going to do the buddy program, and we thought if we did the Army together, then the boot camp wouldn't be that bad. But but actually, me and her both left the Army, and then she also came in the Air Force as well, and she's retired now too. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did she go commission like you?
No, she didn't go commission. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. What message would you like to leave for future generations that will hear or see this interview?
So for future generations, I would just say, live your best life. Don't ever want to look back and say, what if? So, follow your dreams and live your best life. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We are concluding the interview with Tammie Ellerbe